You just bought F1 Manager 2022, and now you find yourself looking at this screen. And maybe you have a favorite team, but maybe you want to try something else. Maybe you don't know which of the 10 teams to pick. I mean, it's a lot of choice. 10 different teams. So I compiled 10 ideas for each of these teams, one each, on how you can spice up your F1 Manager 2022 save. Each team is going to have a unique challenge involved that you can try to accomplish throughout your reign at that team. And we're going to start off directly with Mercedes, obviously the reigning defending constructors champions and the dominant team of the last 8-9 years of the hybrid era, of course. And for Mercedes, I think it would be quite interesting if your challenge was you have to make George Russell, your youngster, your future, a 7-time world champion. Elevate him to the greatness of Michael Schumacher and current Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton. Make him the third in that line of absolute greats of the sport. I think George Russell has what it takes, but can you manage the team to get there? And can you manage the driver to get there as well? That is the question. Well, you can try to find out. It is a long-term objective for sure, but 7 drivers' championships for George Russell. Now, moving on to Red Bull, obviously they are currently leading in the Constructors and Drivers' Championship as of the recording of this video. That is before Spa. Should remain that way after Spa as well. But they had a more dominant phase than they are currently having. And that, of course, was 2010 to 2013 when they had a certain German driver by the name of Sebastian Vettel, who was winning world championships left, right, and center 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. How about you win 4 doubles in a row? 4 drivers and constructors championships. Complete Red Bull dominance and 4 seasons in a row. It's just the dark blue, the red, and the yellow. That is the challenge. And I mean, as a Sebastian Vettel fan myself, I would kind of like to see that. But of course, it wouldn't be with Vettel. It would most likely be with a certain Max Verstappen. But you also need a second driver good enough to achieve that. So that's going to be the challenge. But I think it would be a fun save idea to get that done. Team number 3 is, of course, Ferrari. The Scuderia, Italy's pride, hinges upon what you do with this team. And the idea is, of course, after the recent races, just hire the worst engineers. And no, I'm joking, of course. That is not the plan. That is not the idea here. That is not the challenge. Although it would be a fun challenge, maybe, to hire the worst engineers in the game. But no, the idea is win 5 drivers' championships in a row with a German or an Italian driver, either a homegrown one or the successor to Michael Schumacher. 5 drivers' championships in a row. Complete Ferrari dominance. The colors of Ferrari, the red over everything. That is the challenge for Ferrari. Moving on to McLaren, it's less about championships, even though they have been quite successful in the past as well, but it's more about your driver lineup. Either through development or hiring, replicate what McLaren did in the late 1980s and have the 2 best drivers on the grid when they had Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. The 2 greatest of their time on the same team. It only worked for 2 years and it all imploded. Can you manage it better? Having the 2 best drivers on the grid on your team, and of course tempers are going to flare because they both want to win. They both know they're good enough to win, but only one of them can. Can you manage this dichotomy? Can you manage these 2 clashing when they are at the top of their game? The team number 5 is Alpine, the only French team on the grid. You could have a certain interesting challenge of only having French drivers and potentially even French staff members on your team only. You are a full-on French team, top to bottom, including the drivers, the reserve driver, everything. You are French and you're trying to bring pride and glory back to the country of France. Team number 6 is an interesting one because it is a junior team. It is a team that will most likely never win a Constructors' Championship because any kind of knowledge that they gain, they would immediately have to hand over to Red Bull. So they are very unlikely to ever win anything other than maybe a race or two here, as Sebastian Vettel showed in 2008. And Pierre Gasly, of course, there he is, showed last year. So what if you actually do beat Red Bull in the Constructors? You don't have to win the whole championship, but you beat Red Bull in the Constructors. Just for one season, that's your target. That's the only thing you want to do. You just want to achieve dominance within the Red Bull family. You're now the #1 team. And could you imagine what would happen if this happened IRL? Christian Horner and Franz Tost would probably switch positions, as would Verstappen and Gasly, and maybe Perez and Tsunoda. Like, anything would be possible if all of a sudden we'd live in a universe where Alpha Tauri would be the #1 team and Red Bull would be the #2. Try to achieve that and see this parallel universe unfold. Now, team number 7 is near and dear to my heart. It is Aston Martin. It is the team of Sebastian Vettel. You saw him right there. But we're going to focus on this man right there, Lance Stroll. And how about you can't fire him? Ever. Lance Stroll is unfireable. You cannot get rid of him. You are effectively Lawrence Stroll, not just as the team owner, but also Lawrence Stroll, the father to Lance. So you can't fire Lance, and at the first possible opportunity, you have to make Lance your #1 driver. And from there, well, try to make him a world champion, I guess, because obviously that's always the aim, to win a world championship with Lance Stroll. Team number 8 is Williams, a team with a very storied history. They've been in F1 for at least 40 years at this point, and they've had their fair share of success. Try to replicate that success. Bring them back to glory by winning 5 Constructors' Championships in 6 years. That is what Williams have achieved from 1992 to 1997 with drivers such as Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill, and Jacques Villeneuve. Replicate that and get them back to the top with 5 titles in 6 years. And here we are with team number 9, Alfa Romeo. Now, you may not know this, but Alfa Romeo was actually present as a team for the first 2 Formula 1 seasons ever in 1950 and 1951. However, they dropped out of it exactly after 1951, but until they did, they had a pretty successful time doing it. They won the Drivers' Championship in both years, 1950 and 51. They won the Drivers' Championship, and there was no Constructors' Championship to talk about because that only came about in 1958, so that wasn't a thing at the time. But the only championship that was available, the Drivers' Championship, they did win. Now, what if we take it back to that time, to the 1950s? Their first champion was, of course, Nino Farina, and their second champion was a certain Juan Manuel Fangio, the first 5-time F1 world champion. How about you find a lineup of an Italian and an Argentinian driver, and you bring them to glory, you bring them to world championship glory. Find the successor to the late great Juan Manuel Fangio. And finally, we have the team with really the least history in F1. HAAS, team that only came about, 5 years ago? Gene Haas founded it, decided he wanted to be in F1, and it is, of course, the American team in F1. How about you actually own that fact? You're the American team, so what you're trying to do is you try to find 2 American drivers, maybe even 3, and you make HAAS the home of F1 in the US. Every American should cheer for your team. You have to give them reason to. With the surge of Drive to Survive over in the US, just making it an all-American lineup, I think would be a fantastic way to cash in on potential sponsorships from the US, on fan interest, merchandise. Make it the American team, the red, white, and blue. Have bald eagles on top of your HQ screaming into the distance, HAAS American drivers, and maybe a championship with them. And that's the list. Those are the 10 save ideas that I am willing to give you for free. Work them out, see what happens, see what doesn't, and good luck in your F1 Manager 2022 careers. And if you want to see more F1 Manager 2022 videos, helpful videos, guides on how to play the game, how to succeed in the game, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you do so, because I will be posting a lot of videos on F1 Manager 2022. Setup guides, strategy guides, tips for developing young drivers, common mistakes you're making, etc, etc, etc. So many different ideas. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video of 10 ideas for fun saves, and I will see you guys in the next one or over on my Twitch. Again, link in the description down below. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.